before you fall.
All right.
Okay, it is 11:30, so I call this meeting of the Legislative Committee for Tuesday, September 26th to order. Roll call, please.
Member Chaplin. Here. Member Childress.
Yes.
Chair Sarek.
Here.
Member Eckoff.
Yeah.
Member Galassi. Here. Member Zay.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Number 3, I move to approve 23-3079 legislative minutes for regular meeting from Tuesday, August 22nd. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's approved. Public comment?
None received.
No public comment, so we'll move on to chair's remarks. And just by way of chair's remarks, I want to say thank you to all of you who came today, even those of you who are not on the committee, so thank you for being here. And to reiterate what Cheryl was talking about earlier, that now is the time, we'll probably discuss this at our December meeting, about if you have legislative agenda items for the spring session, if you could start getting them to us. I've got the declawing and debarking, of course, on our legislative agenda. And members, they brought up a registration fee for electric vehicles to pay for the roads, since they don't pay the gas tax or the motor fuel tax. So that's on our radar right now. But if you've got other things on your radar that you'd like us to start watching for the spring session, please let me know, let Cheryl know, or copy us both on your email. So thank you for that. All right, discussion. There's a number on here, but it's not really an approval, right? We're not approving Mark to speak, are we?
No.
All right, so I'd like to introduce those of you who do not know Mark Ayers. Mark is the Illinois Director for the Humane Society of the U.S. So Mark is here to talk about legislation involving all things animals. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chair Nassar and members of the committee. I've got Mark Ayers. I'm the Illinois Director for the HSUS. I've been with the HSUS as our state director for over 8 years. I got one of the funnest jobs being in Springfield and lobbying for animals 24/7 at the state capitol, but also passing various local ordinances, as many of you know, throughout the DuPage County. And so when I got the invite to come up here and present, I wanted to come up here and drive to Springfield and show my appreciation for the county. DuPage County has been one of the best partners that we've got on statewide animal welfare legislation. Your county support, the lobbyists, which I know are here on the call today, have been so instrumental in us passing numerous statewide bills into law. And in 2023 it was no different. And I've kind of been a broken record when I talk to my colleagues. I say, once again, it was a banner year in 2023. We passed not 1, not 2, but 4 bills into law. And so many of my colleagues are jealous that we're always passing pro-animal welfare legislation in Illinois. And that's due in large part to your cooperation, your support here in DuPage County. And so one of the biggest things that we're still trying to address in 2023 and into 2024 is on the topic of puppy mills, specifically pet stores that sell puppies. In 2021, we dealt a very devastating blow to the puppy mill and pet store pipeline. We were the 5th state in the country to pass the retail sales ban, banning the commercial sale of dogs and cats in pet stores, all of which are coming from mills and high volume breeders and brokers throughout the country. That was monumental, what we did in 2021. And that was also due in large part to us passing so many local ordinances, many of which are right here in DuPage County. I think almost every home rule city has passed a humane pet store ordinance. We ended up passing 23 in the whole state: Chicago, Cook County, all the cities throughout DuPage and Will and Lake County. 23 was the magic number that paved the way for statewide legislation. That passed with super majorities in each chamber. We had a Republican sponsor in the House under then Representative Chesney, who's now in the Senate, and Senator Christina Castro was the main sponsor of that in the Senate. That was with super majorities. The bill was put into law in the spring of 2022. And soon after that bill went into effect in 2022, we saw large-scale compliance, which was great. There were around 21 stores in the whole state, primarily all up here in your neck of the woods. Most of them complied either they stopped selling puppies or they began partnering with shelters and rescues to offer those animals for adoption. Some just decided to not sell at all and just only sell products and supplies and small animals like, rabbits and guinea pigs, fish, things like that. And a handful just moved out of state. They did not want to comply at all, and they just left, and that was their choice. However, several stores stayed open. There's a handful that did stay open. They're breaking the law right now as we speak, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit later on in my presentation. But a bulk of our time was spent defending the law that we passed in 2021. Since its passage, the stores that have been staying open and breaking the law are making lots and lots of money still. They're selling puppies between 5 and 10 grand a piece, plus the financing. They're still financing, which I'll get into later. We passed a finance ban that they're also skirting. And so they've hired not one, but 3 different lobbying firms to basically repeal or weaken the pet store law that we passed in 2021. The ink wasn't even dry on the law that the governor signed before they tried to repeal number 1. And that following veto session in 22, it didn't pass. They tried again in 2023. It didn't pass, but they keep coming back and trying again and again and again to mount a repeal effort. That was this year was HB 2793, and I put a fact sheet in your packet if you want to see what that bill would have actually done. But in essence, it would have repealed the law that we passed. That bill did not even get a committee hearing. We were successful in defeating that in committee. And fortunately, the Department of Agriculture also opposed that bill. They did not want that reversing the law that we already passed in 2021. And there was no support among the electeds in the House and Senate to even take that matter up. So that was a big win for us, was defeating for the 3rd time that particular piece of legislation. I fully expect these folks to come back, likely this veto session this fall, which is in October and November. They probably won't pass it there either, and they'll for sure come back once again in the spring of 2024. So we'll keep our eyes out for that. Related to the pet store stuff was HB 3236. So like I said, there's 5 stores that are open right now in the whole state, breaking the law. And since they're still open, they're also still financing these dogs. We passed the retail sales ban and a finance ban in 2021. The stores were making money from the sale of these animals, but also most people couldn't afford a $5,000 to $10,000 dog. And so they were financing these pets. And so the way that they were doing it was connecting the consumer that would walk into the store with a 3rd-party installment loan through FlexPay or Easy Pay, Lending USA, like you're buying a car or a washing machine. And we began seeing the receipts and the contracts for these puppies, upwards of 188% interest on top of the $5,000 to $10,000 dog. Some of the contracts were between 3 and 5 years. The dogs would always then get sick. They weren't covered by the warranty. It was driving people into bankruptcy. And so we were the first state in the country to pass a finance ban. And so fast forward to 2023, the stores that stayed open, breaking the original law, were also still financing because they found another loophole in the law. We went after the installment loans, specifically in the finance ban. They decided, well, we just won't offer installment loans, we'll offer direct-to-consumer loans. Slightly type of different loan that wasn't covered under the original law. They know better, they know what the law was meant to do, and they were still breaking it. So they're still open, they're still selling puppies, they're still financing as of today. However, we did pass HB 3236, which banned financing, period, of dogs and cats in pet stores. No matter what type of finance contract it is, it's now banned entirely. So that will shut down the financing arm of these stores that shouldn't be selling in the first place. So that was a big deal. That did pass unanimously in the Senate, I believe, and a supermajority in the House. So that was a big deal to get 3236. across the finish line. We also passed, this was a huge Senate Bill 1882. We were basically the first state in the country. California did technically do this last year, but our law went above and beyond what California even did. And so the issue was addressing the use of dogs and cats in toxicity testing. And so you often will think of beagles, as a type of dog that's often used in research testing and toxicity testing. There were a handful of companies in Illinois that were using dogs, even though the use of dogs was not required by federal law or by regulatory requirement. So for example, if a pesticide company wanted to test a substance on an animal to see what it would do, they would oftentimes use beagles because that's a common breed. Even though the US EPA that was in charge of regulating that pesticide banned that practice over a decade ago. You don't have to use dogs in that type of test ever. They banned it. But some companies were still choosing to use dogs because they just want the data, even though no one was even asking for the data. And so and there's pharmaceutical companies, and there's all kinds of folks that were still using dogs and cats, even though it was not required under federal law or by regulatory requirement. And so we initiated this, and there was not a single group in opposition to this, unanimous in the Senate, and I believe this was also unanimous in the House. So we have the most comprehensive toxicity testing ban in the entire country, which is really proud for us to say that. That will literally spare upwards of 2,500 beagles that we know of every year from these practices. And so because of Illinois acting, other states are now taking our law that we passed and trying it in their states. So that was a huge success for the HSUS. Senate Bill 1883, this is one of my personal favorites. This goes back almost 8 years when I started. We were the 9th state to pass the ban on the use of elephants in circuses and traveling shows, primarily because of animal abuse. There were various exhibitors that had hundreds and hundreds of USDA violations for abusing their animal. But because of the nature of the act, they just go on the road and they just go from town to town. You can never catch these guys. And so they just stay in business. And so we became the first state ever 8 years ago to ban the use of elephants in circuses and traveling shows. Many states then followed suit. I want to say almost 9 states and followed suit after that, banning elephants, but also banning bears and the big cats, all the primates and other things that you see in circuses and traveling shows. And we tried for many years to include the big cats and primates and bears and that in some trailer legislation. But a lot of the state fairs began opposing it because they viewed it as revenue generators for their counties that were struggling. And the county fairs they thought were revenue producers, and that people would come to the fairs to pet big cats and primates and bears, which is not a good idea. I would never recommend petting big cats and bears. And thanks to Tiger King and the pandemic, that really paved the way and gave us a lot of exposure into the big cat trade. We ended up passing the Big Cat Public Safety Act federally. That took us almost another decade to get that done. And so that was solved federally in the wake of Tiger King. And so we no longer needed to pass in our statewide bill the use of big cats in our bill. So we narrowed it to just all non-human primates and bears. And that was the recipe for success. We got that done, finally got that across the finish line. I think DuPage County already banned this a long time ago when you're at your fairgrounds. They couldn't bring these exhibitors in anyway because of public safety and things like that. In the wake of COVID, a lot of primates can transmit COVID and another zoonotic outbreak. We were seeing banana derbies where they would put monkeys on the backs of dogs and then race the dogs. And then you get photo ops with the monkeys and you've got very close proximity with them. It's just not a safe environment. And so we finally got this done and across the finish line, which makes me extremely happy. And then last year was HB 1049. This was not our bill. This was another nonprofit called Best Friends Animal Society that just banned various homeowners insurance companies from restricting or amending your home insurance based on the type of dog that you have or the breed of dog that you have. We were seeing some scenarios where people would have pit bulls or bigger dogs that your company would drop coverage for, or make you would charge higher premiums if you had a certain type of dog over a certain weight limit or a big head like a pit bull or a bully breed. And so Best Friends took the initiative and passed that into law. And so that was one of the most comprehensive dog breed insurance bans also in the United States. So with those 4 bills passing and the defeat of the hostile bill, it was a very good year for animals again in the state of Illinois. We weren't done. We had 3 more that we also initiated that didn't pass, but they did clear one chamber or the other. And so, like I mentioned earlier, with these stores literally breaking the law, these pet stores breaking the law, right now, and you'll see in your packets, I did include some copies of the Department of Agriculture. They sent to those 5 stores notices of license revocation because they've also said, hey, what you're doing is illegal. You can't do what you're doing. What the stores did, these 5 stores relinquished their pet shop operator license back to the state of Illinois. That's what the law that we passed in 21 applied to. If you're a pet store, you can't sell puppies anymore. You can only offer animals for adoption. That applied to a pet shop operator. These 5 stores said, well, hey, if we're just not a pet shop operator anymore, the law won't apply to us. So that's exactly what they did. And so they relinquished voluntarily their pet shop license and obtained what's called a dog dealer license. Dog dealers historically have always been interpreted by the IDOA to be a licensee that would breed and sell dogs out of their home. It was never supposed to be someone that would sell at retail commercial establishments like a pet store that's located inside the Fox Valley Mall. That's retail. It's not home, that's retail. And so, but these stores thought, well, let's just see if they'll go after us. And so that's what they did. The department then went after them. And we've now been involved, and it's been over a year. August 4th of this year marked the 1-year mark where the department's been in ongoing monthly admin hearings with these stores and their legal counsel. So there's 3 furry babies, Lombard, Aurora, and Rockford. And then there's a Petland in Batavia, and there's a store called The Perfect Pup in St. Charles. All 5 are doing the exact same thing. There will be an admin hearing. There'll be a trial of sorts sometime early next year on the heels of the new spring session. I feel fairly confident that the judge will rule in our favor, but you never know how that will go. Regardless of that, we want to see this put in statute and nip this in the bud. We're tired of coming back every year with these same lobbyists year after year with a repeal effort because they're making so much money and they're still financing. And so the solution to all this is to pass a clarification in statute clarifying what the department already interprets, that dog dealers can't sell at retail to the public. It's a 1-sentence technical fix. And we put this forward in 23 this year. It passed the Senate. Of course, they hired, again, the 3 same lobbying firms that come out swinging on it. There was 12 lobbyists hired to defeat Senate Bill 1230 because they're making that much money off these illicit sales. And so that bill did get stuck in the House, and we were not able to get that one through. And so we will, if there's the support to do that this fall, when we convene for veto session, we'll do it during veto. And if we don't have the appetite to do it during veto, then we'll bring it back in the spring. The bill's still alive, it is not dead. It's a 2-year session. So we'll bring SB 1230 back and we'll see where we go with that. This might be a moot point. If the judge rules in our favor, then it's less important that we get this bill in the statute. But if the judge rules that she's not going to revoke their license, then we need this bill more than ever in statute. But again, I feel fairly confident that this will go our way in court. HB 1533, this was the cat, the claw bill. This was sponsored by Leader Barbara Hernandez. Very interesting issue. There's no ordinances in Illinois that cover this yet. It just simply bans the cats from being declawed for non-therapeutic reasons. So if you want your cat declawed because it's scratching your couch, well, that's unacceptable. It has to be for a medical reason why your cat should be declawed. And so that did clear the House. It just got stuck in the Senate. We ran out of time. There was also some opposition from the Illinois State Veterinary Medical Association, which had some really absurd opposition to this. They admitted during their hearing that most vets don't declaw, but they're still opposed to it. This didn't make any sense to us. And there's a lot of vets that are in support of banning the use of declawing in the state. And so I think, I'm very confident we will get that through. If not this veto session, we'll get it through in the next spring legislative session. We're also trying to get 1 or 2 cities, home rule cities or counties, to pass a cat declaw ordinance. And I think there's some interest with Krajewski and some others, and Don and others, to maybe look at some cities that could do an ordinance banning cat declawing that would kind of give this bill some momentum going into 2023. Last but not least, we're still trying to get something done to prohibit what we call wildlife killing contests. These are contests that literally hunters get together. They're not even deer hunters. These are, I call them contest killers, where they will get together over a weekend and kill as many coyotes as they can for fun and guns and money and ammo and tripods and scopes. And you get prizes for the most killed, the ugliest coyote killed, the scraggliest coyote killed. You get paid to kill, and it's a blood sport. 9 states have banned this already. Most state IDNRs, their own DNRs, have banned this internally. We've approached our own DNR to ban this because they have the authority to ban it, and they refuse to do so. We've approached Governor Pritzker and his office. They refused to do anything on this matter. They said, give it to the legislature. And so it's a frustrating issue for us to work on because 9 states have already done this. 9 DNRs have said that this is despicable. We shouldn't be promoting this. But our state has refused to take this up, and we can't even get committee hearings on this bill. Representative Anna Moeller has been the main sponsor of that particular bill. We'll bring that back in the spring, but that's been a very tough issue to work on. We've been primarily working through rule on this because our DNR does have the authority to ban it today if they wanted to. They just don't want to do it. So we'll continue pressing them to get that done.
Mark, can I ask you real quick,
Yeah.
who, you said that these people, it's a contest, people are paid for all these levels. So the wildlife kill contest, who pays them? I mean, it's not like the DNR is paying them,
Yeah.
you call herds, right?
Yeah,
Like they do
you
with deer and
pay a
such?
fee to enter the race. So it's open to any hunter.
So who's paid, but what's the organization?
There's no real organization that's, I mean, there's probably 12 well-known groups that organize these killing contests.
I just want to make sure it wasn't like a culling the herd kind of a thing.
No. There were some called there was one in far southern Illinois that I attended called the Southern Illinois Predator Challenge. They're called Predator Challenges. There's different names for them.
Okay.
And individuals will pay a fee to enter the contest. We even had outside hunters come into Illinois to come and kill our wildlife. And some of these make a lot of money. There was a grand prize in one last winter that made over $50K in prizes for first place. Then second place got AR-15s, third place got ammo and scopes. I mean, a lot of exhibitors will, like gun companies, sports outfits will donate tripods and guns to offer up as prizes to these things.
I just wondered.
So I've been to several and I've seen them in person. And most of your traditional deer hunters despise these things. This is not killing coyotes for population. It's doing it for fun. So it's hard to watch. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you kind of just touched on it in your last statement there. I'm actually from Wisconsin, so deer hunting is very popular up there, and I know that the argument for it is for population control. Is there a population control happening in Illinois for coyotes? Because I know a friend of mine's dog was killed in front of her by a coyote, so I know there is a coyote issue.
There is, yeah. I mean, so right now coyotes are listed, you know, in the hunting and trapping digest as an animal you can kill 24/7. I mean, without any limits to it at all. It's considered a nuisance in some parts of the state. Kill it whenever you want, you know. So if it's, you know, threatening your animal, your dog, your cat, or it's coming too close to your farm, kill it. I mean, it's always been allowed. That's been the argument though for the killing contest is, oh, there's too many of them, and so let's kill as many as we can. The science has been very clear on that type of issue where when you go in and you clear an entire area of that many coyotes, it upsets the balance. And then they just breed and breed and breed. And then it creates a problem that they say exists. That there's too many, well, yeah, there's too many because you're upsetting the natural ecosystem. At some point when coyotes get to a certain limit in size, they're kind of like feral cat colonies. They get to a certain size, there's alpha males and females. That alpha male won't let his female mate with other males. It's a very stable pack. And so when you go in and you annihilate an entire area, yes, it's devastating to that den of coyotes. And so then they do breed. And the females can breed at a very young age, have lots of pups. Then you've got lots of males breeding with lots of females. And then it creates that situation that they claim is the problem. And so it's this vicious cycle. And so if they would leave them alone, that issue would go away kind of on its own, but we've not been able to convince them that that's the proper course of action. Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to the public health. Why or how are they're allowed to just break the law? Does the lobbyist say, bless you, my child, you don't have to follow the law? What happens? I mean,
yeah.
How do you just break a law?
Yeah, it's frustrating for us because the law was very clear. You can't sell puppies at retail, period. And so part of what was going into SB 1230 was a sentence that clarified that the Department of Ag shall revoke a license for any licensee, not just dog, but if you break the law as a licensee, you will have your license revoked. But that's not in statute. And so something like this has never, ever come up in my 8 years as director. You have a licensee that is licensed for all their time as one thing, and then they say, well, now I'm another. And then they stay opening and they skirt that they break the law. This never happened before. And so there was nothing really in statute that said, well, you're going to get penalties every day, monetary fines. None of that was in place. And so the remedy has always been through admin court, the administrative process. And that's what we're doing now. It's been literally a year. It's been painful to watch, but that's a process that would play out for a dog dealer, a shelter, a rescue, a foster home, even a livestock operator. I mean, if you break the law with the Department of Ag, this is the process that they have. And so I think it also was an eye-opener for them to seek some remedy and say, going forward, any licensee, no matter what you're called, if you break the type of license that you have, we're going to revoke your license. And so hopefully going forward, this won't be a big deal anymore. But
And that's what you want to tweak in the veto or the spring session.
yeah, with the 1230.
Add
yeah.
that one sentence.
Yeah, it's
Member
never
Gustin had a
happened
question?
before. Yeah.
Hi, Mark. I'm so glad you're here and thank you so much for all the years that you've been working on animal issues. I know when I was on the city council, we worked very closely together because we had a mayor at that time, not the current mayor, who was against passing legislation with respect to the anti-puppy mills. And then we had some council members also that didn't support it. However, it did get passed at the city of Naperville and you guys went forward and bloomed and got all this stuff done. However, my understanding, and maybe it's not true anymore, was that the stores potentially would change to a kind of a not-for-profit, like an adopt kind of situation so that they could avoid the jurisdictional kind of issues that came with the legislation. Is that kind of still going on or not?
Yeah, it was our hope and our wish that these stores would stay in place. They didn't have to close, they would stay open and work with actual shelters, work with DuPage Animal Services, put dogs in their store that were up for adoption, and then sell product and supply. That was the thought. Their argument was, we don't want to do that. We just don't want to do that. We can't make enough money doing that. Even though PetSmart, Petco, Pet Supply Plus are opening dozens of stores across the country every year doing just that. And so that sales model works very well. I will say that the store chain that is breaking the law right now in Illinois, when they ditched their pet shop license, they're now a dog dealer. They also applied for an animal shelter license. And we saw where they were going with that. They created a non-for-profit called the Baby Princess Foundation to funnel dogs from a broker and pass it off to their C3 arm as a rescue dog. And so after we investigated that and had the IDOA crack down on that license was also relinquished voluntarily by that same pet shop operator. And so they've been trying to find all sorts of clever ways and gimmicks to stay open and skirt the law. I wish they would comply. Again, most did. I mean, most said we didn't like the law, but we're going to comply. And many of them are open right now, not selling puppies. I mean, they're doing just fine.
Well, and we
But-
had that testimony at council, one FBI agent who had bought a puppy for his family. And a month later, the puppy passed away after $30,000 of expenses because the family got really attached to it. We also had breeders come from the Amish group, and they shared with us, they make about $150,000 a year breeding, puppies for these stores. So kudos on all you've done. I know there's a lot more work to do. With respect to the coyotes, quick question, why isn't the governor stepping up and doing something? And why can't he put pressure on the IDNR to just get it done?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer. I mean, we've been talking to them for a while, over a year. We've sent in a rulemaking petition to his office and at the IDNR to do this with all the evidence and science of why it should be done. We got a one sentence explanation, which was give it to the legislature. There was no reason for it. If the reason was, well, population control, or we don't have the authority, or it was just give it to them, let them figure it out. I don't know. I wish I could answer for
Let
you.
me piggyback on that question and to Chair Desai. You said that the coyotes, whoever killed the most got like $50,000. $50,000 up, that's a lot of money. And I don't think we got an answer.
It was all the participants that go to the contest to even be there in the first place. So they open it up to any hunter that wants to come to the Bloodbath 2000. Come here, you pay $50, $100. Some of it's could be $250 per person. It's usually like 2-person teams or 4-man teams that sign up, as a club, and then they will go out over the weekend and kill. So the more people you get, that dictates the size of the pot money. So it could be a couple $100, it could be upwards of $50K. And some of these are very well organized contests. Some have been going on for over 10, 12, 13 years. Some are very small and they only give a couple $100 as a prize, and they only get maybe 10 people that go to it. But some of these are massive.
I think he's asking who puts this on. The money obviously comes from the
It's private
participants, but
groups, right?
They're just private, yeah, they're just private, they're just men that want to host an event. Some of them can be like the Southern Illinois Predator Challenge. I don't think it's not even a real, just a name of a group of guys. There's at least 9 or 10 of these that we've witnessed throughout the state. It's a conglomerate of just some hunters in an area that want to put on an event. And so then they publicize it and then people come to it.
There's people that
Mark,
wanna
let
go
me ask
kill
you
something.
something.
Yeah.
Let me shift gears a little bit because I'm concerned about everything you said, but I'm also concerned about this predatory lending. And whether you're buying a puppy or a car or a washer and dryer.
Yeah.
I thought predatory lending, like this 188% interest rate, is illegal at the federal level, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what we thought too. They were issuing, it was 188% interest. It was my understanding that because they were installment loans, that they were somehow exempt from that, which I don't fully understand that argument at all. I mean, most of them were triple digit interest rates.
Right.
I mean, we did see some that were 30 to 35 for a $10,000 puppy, but most were in the triple digit realm. We gave all this evidence and the receipt to the IDFPR, which regulates the Lending Practice Act. And they didn't seem too concerned at the time. They said, well, we need some clarifying language, which was HB 3236, to go after these guys, how you want us to go after them. So if they're financing, period, we need 3236 to do that. I don't know how, Don, they were doing what they were doing at those rates. We had people actually testified at the state level of how this wrecked their families and what this did to their pocketbook. And then the dog was sick on top of that. I mean, it wrecked people. And so, you know, we thought that, you know, we solved that in 21 as well when we passed the actual finance ban, but these folks are clever. They have a lot of money to find ways to hire lawyers to find ways around the law. They found another one by just changing the type of loan. If you go on their websites right now, the ones that are open, there's a financing tab on the website. I mean, they're openly promoting that they're still financing dogs from breeders on their website, which is two bills or two laws that they're breaking. And so, you know, at some point, I'm going to come back to this committee and say it's mission accomplished. We've actually got these guys out of here. And, you know, it's been something that we've been working on for 8 years with your lobbyists to nip this in the bud. And I'm hoping that in 24, we're finally able to come back and say mission accomplished. But I don't know how they were getting away with the federal ban on the predatory rates, because I think your like pawn shops couldn't issue loans either at those rates. And
Right.
maybe they're just saying, come take us to court. I don't know.
Any last minute comments?
No, I will wrap up and say the ones at the bottom those are all the bills that we are carrying over to 24. And so, you know, just continuing any opposition to repeal the humane pastoral law, the dog dealer cleanups on the claw bans on there. We're going to be banning animals as prizes in fairs and carnivals. Should be a fairly easy bill to get done. And then be on the lookout for, and I'll let you guys know, but the IDOA, the Department of Ag will be issuing rules that tighten up the standards of care for all licensees at facilities. So dog breeders, shelters, rescues, animal controls, foster homes can no longer stack cages. They can no longer have wire floors. There will be grooming standards, socialization standards. It's a sweeping upgrade on standards of care at all facilities under IDOA jurisdiction. And so once that's published through JCAR, I'll let you folks know if you can maybe support that in 24, but we're looking forward to another successful and ambitious.
And you heard me talk at the
2024.
beginning that we're looking for legislative agenda items
By December.
Yeah. Any question, Mr. Member Cruz?
Just real quick, I know, thank you, Mark, for all the work, and DuPage has been a strong supporter. Our state's attorney's been really tough on animal abusers also, so I know they were instrumental in 1499 Senate bill, which Alyssa Roblesky's gotten some awards for prosecutions, but it gives them more ability for lifetime ban and also to be able to take animals away from abusers. It used to be when they were convicted, because a lot of them with supervision. So now they have a lot more tools that they can use. But again, for this decline, I know working with you, the help momentum to get the puppy mill ban was when we were DuPage. Again, we tried to get home rule. Well, we tried to get the ban for DuPage and Will, and the lobbyists just blocked everybody in Springfield from doing that. But then getting home rule communities, which aren't bound by Springfield, DuPage was able to work with, I think we got Downers Grove, like I said, Getty did a great job in Naperville, Willowbrook, West Chicago, Warrenville, Lyle, all put those bans in, and that was enough momentum to help with some of the other municipalities. So I think we need to do the same with the decline. So I think we as board members can help work with a few of our local municipalities. I'd ask Cheryl to maybe put that on the intergovernmental with the DuPage mayors. I know we canceled tomorrow's meeting for lack of agenda item, but if we can get a few of these home rule communities to ban it before veto session, or I think that'll help you in getting this passed in Springfield.
It'd be huge.
I have an outreach right now to Downers Grove, I know, and I talked to the West Suburban Humane Society, which from you in that area know, they're 100% on board, and they will go testify also in front of the village council. But if we can talk, I'm sure Adopt and Naperville Humane are both, I'm sure, on board. But if we get the humane societies to work with their local home rule communities and help get a few of these to pass, I think that'll really help with momentum down there in Springfield.
That'd be huge. I'd really appreciate that. And thank you to the county again and your, rock star team of lobbyists. I know they're watching on this call.
Yeah.
There's been many times where I've been outgunned 12-1 lobbyists, and Chip Humes always has my back in Springfield. So thanks for bringing them back every year. I really
I
appreciate
think that
that.
first year when actually DuPage just helped to stop them from overturning Chicago, you would be in a room with 5 or 6 or 7 lobbyists. But once we were able to put that on our agenda, that allowed Chip Humes to go down there, and of course all the legislators all like Chip. Some of the other lobbyists, maybe not so much.
Last minute questions from the committee?
Question, how many of the animal prize, these predator challenges, how many of them have we had in the state of Illinois? One is too many in my view, but I'm just curious.
A couple dozen that we know of that we track every year. There's probably 5 or 6 dozen that we don't know of.
Can we get more data on that and also maybe get that on a legislative agenda
There's
also?
quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, some are very visible and they promote their events every winter. So we track them and we, get pictures from them. But some they no longer advertise because people are catching on about what goes on at them. So they take it underground. But yeah, there's several that we know of for sure every year.
Member Garcia?
Real quickly, I was just looking to see if there's any devocalization for dogs, and are you working on that?
Yeah, we, not at the state level, I think if there's a local ordinance that could add that would be preferred.
Okay,
We do see a lot of dog devocalization, not on a major scale, but it is done by some vets for convenience purposes. And I don't want my dog barking, so debark them. We just call it devocalization. We do see cats now and then I call it de-meowing, but it can't happen for a cat. So if there's a local ordinance that someone's interested in, we can also include animal devocalization in the cat to claw.
And Mark was saying at the very beginning, before we started the meeting, that the BMA is against the ban because they make money, right?
The Illinois
So
State
that's a hill to
BMA was
climb.
against cat to claw. Even though they don't do it anymore, they're still opposed to it. And they're opposed to dog debarking bans, even though no one really does it much anymore. And they also opposed our puppy mill bill. So that's any indication of where they stand. Yeah,
Okay, so we still have work to do. Mark,
yeah,
thank you so
appreciate it,
much.
Chair. Thank
Really
you.
appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for the
I would
invite.
not move on to our Springfield lobbyist. Mark Polis is here. As you can see Mark on Zoom. And also I believe Chip Humes is on audio only. But gentlemen, congratulations. Our board, the DuPage County Board, just approved your contracts for another year. So congratulations on that. We have full faith in your ability to send DuPage County to the fullest in Springfield. Who would like to go first?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Appreciate the opportunity to continue to represent you. Mark Paulus with Rouchy and Sullivan, and I am here along with Chip Humes, who is not able to be on camera, but an interesting conversation about Springfield politics there for about a half hour on how difficult sometimes it is to get things done and get things moving. You get kind of a taste of it from the county level when we talk to you, but Chip and I get to live it down there, and sometimes it is not pretty. But well done on this particular issue from the county taking a lead standpoint on this. I think we were asked to give kind of sort of a brief overview of what's to come. We are entering October this week, and that is somewhat sad for a number of reasons. Summer is gone, and we are into fall. But that also means fall veto session. So the week before Halloween and then the week after Halloween, we will be entering Springfield veto session starting that Tuesday, October 24th, I believe is the first day. I anticipate day one being a travel day. Not a whole lot going to happen. They're only scheduled to be there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at this point. If you talk to Senate Democrats, I don't think they anticipate being there much longer than at some point on Thursday, but not into the evening on Thursday. At least that's been several of the conversations I've had. So a pretty short week on week one. And then following the the Halloween week, we'll be returning there for 3 days again that first week in November. This is a little different veto session than we're used to seeing with this Governor J.B. Pritzker. He served out his first term. He's in his second term, and for the first time has really used the veto pen. So he did veto 2 particular bills and then mandatorily vetoed a third. I'll start with the first. So there was a Senate Bill 76. It was an attempt at removing the moratorium on nuclear energy. The governor's office in their veto message suggests that albeit Senator Rezin and Representative Yednock were attempting to lift the moratorium and allow for the continuation or formation of new nuclear energy as it relates to small micro nukes. But the governor's office believed that the language did not specify that enough and that it opened the door to large nuclear facilities in the future. So right now, Senator Rezin and Representative Yednock are working steadfast with the administration and legislature to try to come up with some language that is amenable to the administration instead of overriding the veto. So, that bill did pass with some pretty sweeping votes that is well beyond the veto-proof majority needed in order to override the veto. So really, I'll give you the kind of 3 steps since we're going to talk about 3 of them. One, the legislature could choose to override. So the sponsor of the bill in the chamber of origin. So this one happens to be a Senate bill. So Senator Rezin would override the veto. A vote would be taken in the Senate. If you get the requisite 36 votes required to override the veto, it would then be sent to the second chamber of the House to then take a vote, which is a requirement of 71 votes to override the veto. If you have 36 to 71, you have successfully overridden the governor's veto. The next option is to take out offending language that the governor's office has suggested exists and or negotiate language that is amenable to the governor's office and simply take the old bill language along with the amendatory language and put it on an active bill, likely a House bill in the Senate, pass a new bill on 3rd reading, send it over to the House for concurrence, and everybody's happy. You didn't have to override the governor's veto. You heard his message, and you've just passed a new bill, and you've achieved the goal that you want to. I don't think that there has been any agreement as of yet as to what approach is going to be taken, but I can tell you that I know that the senator and House rep are working diligently with the governor's office and others to try to come to an amenable solution without overriding the governor's veto. So that's the first one on nuclear energy. Anybody have any questions about that particular bill? Hearing none, I'll move on to the next bill. So there was another bill. It was House Bill 2878. This was what I would call an omnibus procurement bill. So it largely had to do with a lot of higher education and the way that they procure services and contracts for largely construction of dormitories and buildings and the like. There was also a portion that's particular to the county, and that was a expansion of the P3 Transportation Act. So there has existed for some time a P3, a Public-Private Partnership Act in the state of Illinois that pertained to transportation. It was very limited to transportation agencies, meeting the Illinois Department of Transportation and the Illinois State Toll Highway Authority. That P3 Transportation Act has never been used and implemented, so there's not been a P3 project that has been undertaken under it. So the thought was, why don't we loosen it up a little bit and why don't we expand it so we see if others have a interest in using it. So there was other than just the transportation agencies asking for RFPs on particular project. It allowed for unsolicited proposals. So folks that had a great idea could send in projects or ideas to get off the ground. And it also, more important to DuPage, expanded the use of P3s to be allowed by local municipalities, townships, counties, and the like. So example, if there was the county of DuPage wanted to make use of the P3 Transportation Act, they had a particular bridge they wanted to build, they wanted to engage in that as a P3 activity, they in fact could under this. The governor amendatorily vetoed this particular House Bill 2878 and essentially said, we don't like this business about expanding this to locals without particular guardrails around it. So their concern was, small town sits there, some Spanish company comes to town, says, hey, we've got an interest in taking over all of your local roads and streets. We'll put a toll booth at each lane. You're going to make a whole bunch of money out of this and you can lower your taxes by 40%. Somebody says, what a great idea. Let's do it. And nobody could stop them. So the governor's office is really concerned about that type of activity. So in any event, I worked with the governor's office and agreed that the amendatory veto will occur, which it did. We are going to work with the governor's office about some guardrails around that expansion to locals. So we are likely to take that offending language out, the expansion to locals, tack the rest of the language on another bill, move it through the House and the Senate, and have the bill become law without the expansion to locals for now. Continue to work with the governor's office with unoffending language, put some guardrails around it, and then pass another bill in the spring. So that's the plan on that. So I see we got a hand up.
Quick question. So what significance or relevance would that bill have with respect to unions? Anything at all? Because you're saying it could be a company that, is going to do a bridge and they're the lowest and they want to come in and do it. And then the municipality or the town or the village or whomever can just go, yes, this is the lowest price and they can do it. So this has no significance, or there was no reason it was vetoed due to the fact of not being able to basically specify that a union would be able to get the job.
The answer is no effect. In fact, if you engage in this type of activity under the P3 Transportation Act, there's three requirements under the P3 Transportation Act that no matter who receives the contract, they have to, 1, pay prevailing wage, 2, be considered a responsible bidder, including participation in an applicable apprenticeship and training program registered by and approved with the Office of Apprenticeship with the U.S. Department of Labor. And furthermore, they have to engage in a project labor agreement approved by the entity letting the contract.
And that really does kind of rule out those mom and pop places, and usually the unions do have all those internship programs, so
yep,
they fit that mold. Okay, great.
You got it. So yep, so that's where we're at with that. And then the third,
talking about the tollways, Mark, and I just wanted to say, I was living here in the 70s and 80s when they put in the tollways temporarily. The state said that it was just temporary. They were going to take the tolls out of the tollways. So I'm wondering how we're doing on that. Any idea when the tolls are coming out? Just
I think next stop tollway increase someday. to be quite blunt. In fact, the tollway has just started their what I would call listening tour. So they start. I don't remember if it's this week or next week where they're doing something at the City Club. They've invited a bunch of folks and have said, hey, we're getting to the tail end of our spend out of our 10-year, $15 billion projects. And we're listening to what does the future hold? And in any event, they're starting to kind of sort of entertain that. But you remember, I mean, there was a 66 2/3 increase on tolls roughly a decade plus ago. And that kind of sort of has held steadfast. And the tollway has a AAA bond rating and has been a good steward of the money. But I wouldn't hold your breath for tolls going down or away anytime soon.
Thank you, Mark. Number 3.
So I will mention too, because this I think has massive implications for DuPage County. That tied to, or I shouldn't say tied to, but related to House Bill 2878. was House Joint Resolution 23, which passed during the legislative session. And that was so again, under the P3 Transportation Act, that if someone wants to, if a transportation agency, DOT or the tollway, wanted to engage in a P3, they had to get legislative approval in order to do it before they could engage in that type of activity. So Anastava Murray passed a Joint Resolution 23 authorizing the Department of Transportation to engage in a P3 for managed lanes on I-55. That was then pushed over to the Senate. It ultimately wound up as the sponsor, Leader Cunningham. It was successfully passed out of there as well. There was some pretty massive opposition on this particular project for really the first time on a transportation project from environmental groups. I would use the term misplaced. There's just every study that's been done from IDOT and the NEPA and CMAP and everything else shows that this is a massive congestion relief. It's a massive decrease in greenhouse gas emissions that the environmental justice communities like the Pilsen and Little Village area and Chinatown and all those places along the corridor are like massive congestion points that would actually be saved by moving traffic along. So I just again I'm a little puzzled by it, but nevertheless those are just the facts that are out there, and they've just MPC and Environmental Council, and nobody's offered anything otherwise other than just kind of conjecture about this. But the project essentially is from I-355 all the way into the Dan Ryan. So I'll start with I-355 inbound and outbound. There would be one lane that would go to LaGrange Road. That would be a managed lane, and from there would be two lanes that would be managed from LaGrange Road in and out to the Dan Ryan. It would be within the existing footprint of I-55. However, the entire corridor would be redone by a private operator. So even the free lanes would be as nice as the paid lanes, and the agreement would require the free lanes to be as nice as the paid lanes. And when I say managed lanes, it's like the operator could propose based on vehicle size, weight, whatever it might be, different times of day, congestion, pricing, all kinds of different things that could be approved by the governor's office, the legislature, the DOT, that type of a project. It's about a $2 billion project. It is shovel ready. And in addition to all of that, it would be a massive expansion of the PACE bus service. So Rick Kwasniewski and the PACE bus service have been working with the folks on this I-55 project as well. So you'd have more park and ride facilities. You'd have an expanded bus service. So like kind of sort of a real mass transit option down the I-55 corridor. CMAP did a study on this, says it's the #1 congestion relief project that would happen in the corridor out of any other project that's been slated for the area. And, in terms of like putting people in and out of the city of Chicago, the kind of what I would call southern portion of DuPage County would be I think a massive recipient of something like this. So any questions on that?
Yeah, I do. When you're talking about managed lanes, are you talking about kind of like the express lanes like the Kennedy has?
Nope,
But
these are unmanned. You never see a toll, but you are charged a toll, right? You're charged a fee to use the lane. Nothing forces you to. There'll still be free lanes on I-55. So if you choose to use the free lanes, it's fine. So at times of less congestion, so managed lanes, the kind of definition of managed lanes is you get the traffic moving in the managed lanes at a minimum speed of 45 miles per hour. That's the goal. So however you can do that to manage it, you manage that lane to move the traffic at 45 miles per hour. There's a number of states. There's 10 states, California, Texas, Virginia, just outside of DC. So I think a portion of DC, I think that's.
I was thinking about the DC lanes. Yeah.
Yep. So Colorado has them, the list goes on. It's kind of, so again, you choose to drive in them, you're going to pay. You choose to get out of them, you don't pay. You get back in, you pay. You get out of them, you don't. If you're in a free lane, you can still drive free on I-55. But the thought is, it is the single best way to have a shovel-ready project that could be done, and that corridor then comes off of the state books and goes to a P3 operator, a company, a consortium, whatever it might be, that would take over that corridor and then manage that corridor for the foreseeable future.
Mark, you said it's shovel ready, but is it paid for? Is there funding available for it?
It is zero public funds. It's all private money that goes into it, and there are a number of folks, including the state's pension funds, local union pension funds that all have a grave interest in, if they could, they would love to invest in this. I'll give you an example. Will County, Hobart Road Bridge, coming out of the intermodal facilities, Centerpoint Properties, largest intermodal in North America. There was a traffic problem down in that area for a number of years. A solution was to extend Centerpoint Way at the north all the way past Route 6 to then dump the truck traffic straight out onto I-80 and to redo the interchanges there. That was successfully done under kind of a P3 model, all private money, including union pension funds invested in that. About a $250 million bridge that was built over a couple-year period, opened just earlier this year, and has been a massive success thus far. So it's that type of a model.
Thank you. Member Gus, you had a question?
One quick question, and I should know this because my family lives off of 55. There's no tolls on that road, right?
No.
Currently?
They're not.
Okay, so
They're
this
not.
follow the money basically, because whoever's gonna manage it, they're gonna charge a fee to ride on the road, and so it's not gonna be free to people anymore. It's gonna cost, just like.
Now, there's always a requirement that there be a free option. So there has to be free lanes and paid lanes. So part of the managed lanes concept is you always provide a free option because you just don't want it to become the highway for the rich, right? You want it to be the highway for everybody. It's supposed to so for the folks that, can't afford it, you're unlikely at congestion times to move at a 45-mile-an-hour pace. However, individuals that make the choice, I'll give you an example. Somebody's got a meeting to be to. I mean, I use I-55 all the time. It's really unpredictable, right? So I kind of leave a 2-hour marker in my calendar that if I have a meeting downtown at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, I leave 2 hours to get there, to park, to get up to the meeting and all those things. This would alleviate, 60 minutes out of that, right? You would leave to come from, the DuPage Naperville side of things to jump on I-55. That's it now becomes a 60-minute proposition.
Yeah, Colorado has something similar, and it's pretty expensive in those express lanes. But I'm used to not paying anything on 55.
Yeah, there'll always be an option not to pay.
But again, it'll help the pensions funding,
Sure.
and there's kind of following the same money. So okay,
Member
thank
Jeff.
you.
I just want to say thanks to Ann Stabber-Murray, right? You said Ann Stabber brought this.
Yeah, Anna Stabber-Murray was, and she was she's about as environmentally friendly as they come. And boy, the environmental community came after her, and she stood firm and said, boy, you just don't have the facts behind you, and did one of the single best jobs at navigating her way through a committee than I've ever seen a legislator do. So kudos to Representative Stabber-Murray. She did just a fabulous job and brought this thing home. So.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark, we have been meeting for over an hour, so I'm gonna have to conclude. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Comments from you? All right, maybe Chip is gone. All right, thank you, Mark. We'll have you back, Mark, in 20.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, well, hold on, everybody. We still need to talk about any old business. All right, any new business?
Just really quick, I love animals and I truly love them. We spend a lot of time talking about animals, but we have so many really issues like food insecurity, housing, gun violence, jobs. I mean, I'd like to hear
You're
somebody.
not wrong.
I'm gonna bring in somebody about gun violence to talk about legislation. I think we need to
Thank
bring
you,
somebody
please.
come in, food insecurity, talk about legislation that we can do. Housing, more legislation that we can do to help that, even jobs, even like Willowbrook Corner, what can we do? Is there legislation that we can put in place to help those people? Because I love animals, but I love people.
Could you work with me and with Cheryl
Yeah,
to
of course.
have these listed for our December
Yep.
meeting?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
and if we have speakers come in for a December meeting?
Yep.
Okay, any other new business? All right, without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you so much for staying over an hour.